Hey friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Kevin Harrington. He was a roadie for the Beatles, and he's going to share some personal stories about being around John Lennon.
John one day came into EMI again, and said, "Hey, Yoko's doing an exhibition in Park Lane. It's called You Are Here. Do you fancy coming and give us a hand just to set up?" And so I said, "Yeah, of course, naturally, we don't say no." And so I just spent the day with him and Yoko and other people, and just setting up her exhibition. And yeah, that was nice. There was a nice photo somebody took of me and John just talking. It wasn't a set-up photo. It was just one of the fans, I think, had just taken this snap of me and John, and it's a lovely photo. I was quite pleased with that. But then they did this photo session outside with all these white balloons and with the gallery owner and John and Yoko. And I'm standing there next to them, and we're all holding up these white balloons, and that was like a publicity shot. And apparently that went into a calendar that they produced, that John and Yoko produced for the You Are Here exhibition. So that I've got there's nice memories, there's some silly memories, like me tripping over his headphones. It was very, very late, as they say. And in EMI, they had these fluorescent lights set up because they got fed up with just this whiteness for 12 hours, 10 hours, 6 hours, So they wanted a bit of mood, a bit of atmosphere. So they rigged up these fluorescent lights, 6 of them, 2 yellow, 2 red, and 2 blue. And one night, I think the reds were on, and at that time of night, there's cables in a studio all over the place, right? And John was in a little sound booth, singing away, or starting to sing away, and I'm just trying to move, go from one place to another, without, making a sound. But my foot caught his headphone wire went through a little hole in the bottom of the booth and came out, right, and to the box on the floor. Well, I tripped over that, and I just wrenched his headphones off, and he just screamed, "Fuck out!" And the engineer thought it was him putting the volume up too much, and so I just thought, "No, sorry, John." I just fuck it. That was one of those nights, But they were all really nice. They were just lovely, they really were.
Was John particular about guitars and amplifiers and stuff like that?
No, none of them were. It was just basic, this is the guitar I'm using. There's my twin Fender, let's go, And then if they wanted a different sound or whatever, then the engineers would come down and they'd go, "Okay, what about putting it in this box?" Or, we can do that through the control room. But generally, no, it was just change the strings, okay, and that was it really. I need a capo. I found out what a capo was. I found out lots of things, on the Double White album, I learned a lot. They were doing a song called Bungalow Bill, and they wanted a chorus. And so I was just sitting there as normal, just doing nothing, waiting for something to happen. They went, "Kevin, come and you're part of the chorus." And so, right, all together now. Hey, bungalow. And I'm not a singer, And so when I sing, and I have to sing, I would kind of go, rather than like that, and be totally out of tune. When you're singing low, you don't really have to be in tune. You're just like this, And so I just sang, "Hey, bungalow," real low, just trying not to be heard. Although I do think I can hear it I've got a feeling that might just be psychotic, but I can hear myself underneath there somewhere, just singing the chorus.
You're at least part of the whole.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah,
You're there.
I'm there somewhere. just way down, No, this was the thing. In those days, it was a closed shop. If they needed somebody in, then that somebody came in. I mean, one night they actually brought in two of the girls from outside to sing a bit. I can't remember what song that's on. But it was generally, that's why it was a privilege for me to be there. Because I knew that it was such a closed shop. And I'd known this since 1966 when I started, at NEMS. So I'd always known that the Beatles in the studio that's a no-go area. That is so private. It's, quite phenomenal. I tried to, they asked me to hand clap, and at that time my confidence just was not as high as it is now, and I didn't really want to mess up. So I think I tried a couple of times, and just was so nervous. I just had to say, I can't do this. I'm going to mess up. I can't do this. So I just went, no, I got to sit down, just to be straight up. Well, for me, you see, it was all happy, and it went on for 2 years. And so they all meld, I can't sort of give specifics. It was just a happy time, and they were always all right, that was the thing at EMI, everybody was lovely. It was just good. It was just a great time for me. I'm just learning, I'm seeing what's happening, and I'm staying up late, and I'm getting up late, and, I'm going to work late, 7 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night, so I'm in my element, and it wasn't our jobs to document what they were doing, so it's what happened yesterday. Did anything specific happen? No, they did a number, what was the number? Oh, whatever it was. And then it's the next day, and then, okay, we start all over again. I get there at 6, set up, make sure everything's, so they get there at 6:37, make them their teas, and then you sit downstairs and you sit in the studio while they're all playing around and, just having a good time and, making sure they're happy with what they've got and what they want to do with it, And then once all of that starts, then you just go out and you go and get yourself a cup of tea. Mal and I would go and get a cup of tea, Okay, they're happy. We know they're all right for half an hour. They've got their cigarettes, they've got their tea, just leave them to it now. And that's how it was. And then the same thing the next night. And then the next night. And that went on for 5 months. They were recording when I went down, when I first started out, first day, it was Revolution number 9. And I just couldn't believe what I was listening to, I'm thinking, this is not the Beatles, this is crap, This is not what I was expecting, Yeah.
Were they excited about it?
Not as far as I can remember. I don't know. It was off the wall as far as I'm concerned. It was like, oh, okay. What is this number 9? Number 9? What's that about? So, yeah, that was kind of a funny start.
Did you ever warm up to that track?
No. No. Yeah, it's the funny thing about that roof gig was last night when I saw the preview. I've always been under the impression that we never had music stands, right? And so for years I've been, doing interviews saying, well, the reason I was kneeling down is because we didn't have, John asked for a music stand. This is in my head, right? And I didn't have one, so the only thing I could think of was be a music stand, right? And which has always kind of, to be honest, embarrassed me that I had to do that. It turns out that John actually asked me to hold the lyrics up because being an ex-roadie, the first thing I spotted in the studio on the film was music stands. And I'm sitting there going, I've been lying for years, or I've not been telling the truth for years, Oh, wow. So I've now got to go back to certain people and go, that story I told you. So, yeah, so it's good. Kevin, lyrics. Okay, so that was all right. I was. Yeah.
What song was that?
Dig a Pony. Yeah, I'm often reminded, Kevin, dig a pony. I don't actually have in my head a set time of when somebody said, right, we're going on the roof. I can't remember that exact moment. But when it was decided that we're going on the roof, I should imagine I'd be there at about 9:30 and just taking all the gear out of the basement and up in the lift and just up to the top floor and then up the windy little stairs, plonk it down, go back downstairs, get another amp. And because those Fenders were heavy, man. Those twin reverbs with the 12-inch speakers. I mean, they were heavy, even for a strapping young lad like me. So
all by yourself, you're hauling this gear?
Yeah, initially. Well, because Mal's doing his other stuff, so it's basically me. And then we get to the roof, and I've got Paul's bass, and bring that out, and it just will not go round the stairs. It just, there's a small bloody stairs, and it just wouldn't go over the balcony or the banister,
His bass amp?
Yeah. And so it was also the bass for Billy's Rhodes piano. That also wouldn't go round because it's about the same size as the bass. But above the stairs was a skylight. So I went down to Mal and said, Mal, we've got a problem here. Everything's up there except Paul's bass and, Billy's piano bottom. So we look up and there's a skylight and we're okay, right through the skylight. So we get some rope, or Mal gets some rope and tie it up and we pull it up. And it won't go through by about that much. By about that much, man. And so it's like, okay, we'll unscrew the window, and then it should just fit. And it did. It was, they just got through, just squeezed through. So that's how we got those two bits of equipment out. And then it was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, the band were in good spirits all the time. They really were. To see this film, to me, it brings back what fun they were to work for, and what it was really like, because you kind of forget, you had good times and that all of that, but and then to watch it all, it's kind of like, yeah, actually, this is a lot better than what I kind of sort of think of, even though I know it was good fun, it was even better fun than what I actually remembered, So that was pleasant.
What's your memory of the cops showing up?
Well, all I remember was just two policemen turning up on the roof, and Mal's dealing with them. So I'm just sort of, just watching, just like, okay, this is, okay, what's going to happen now? And then Mal come on and turn the amp off, and George just turned it back on, and just, but on the film, it's wonderful. I mean, just to watch all of that unfolding down in the reception, it was wonderful because I didn't know any of it out there. These policemen are there for ages down in the reception, and they're being, sort of, but we're just trying, and all of this, it's good. Yeah, when you see it, it'll make you laugh because we'll go,
Do you think they would have played some old rock and roll songs if they would have kept going?
I would see no reason why not, because they were well into it. They often did. In fact, even in the film, they're messing about downstairs and, with old songs and stuff. So I'm sure they would have done just for the crack because they were enjoying it. They really were, and that was nice to see. in the studios, you know, in between the take or an engineer's they've got to wait for an engineer to change the tape or whatever. They would occasionally just, you know, whack out Long Tall Sally or, you know, any of the old rockers that they used to do. And it was fun sitting there and just listening to this band, proper band, just playing proper old rockers that, you know, I used to hear on the radio and stuff. It's like, yeah, this is all right. They are a good group, and they were a good group. And when they, you know, just hit a song, it was everybody just as one. You know, it was lovely. It was a wonderful atmosphere, wonderful times. Well, it was, yeah, getting the gear down was just reverse, really. You know, Mal got up the top and skylight and just lowered those two bits of equipment down, and I took them downstairs, and that was it. You know, the rest sort of I did by myself. While Mal went downstairs and took care of the boys, I just took care of the equipment. You know, I guess it took about an hour or so, just over an hour, to get all that gear back down. It took about an hour or so to get up, go out, lift the next one up, you know, okay, bring it down, and then just into the lift, down to the basement, back where it was, and let's start. Although, because that really, I think, was the last day. There was one more, looking at the film, they did one more session. That was on day 21, I believe, or 22 of all of the filming, all of this. And so on day 22 was the last day that there was any filming. Yeah, every time somebody finds out that I've worked for them and I was up there, then it's always, you know, what was it like? You know, were they good people? You know, see, people used to say, you know, oh, you worked for the Beatles, what were they like? And I'd say, well, they were great. You know, the story is so long that you know, I sort of sometimes say, what do you want, the short version or the long version? You know, the Beatles were fantastic. You know, and so when somebody says, oh, you worked for the Beatles, it must have been great, and you were on the roof, and then yeah, because we didn't have a music stand. And then I go into this old story, but now I don't have to. Yeah, John asked me to now, and so that's like, yeah, that's all right, you know. So I'm going to change my story after 50 years. I was office boy at NEMS, and every day I'd go to Paul's, take letters from the office. Excuse me. Normal thing, knocked on the door, you know, Paul answered, hey, Kevin, Paul, how you doing? All right, yeah, how are you getting back to the office? I'm going to get a bus. Hang on, I'll come with you. I was like, oh, okay, you know. And so we walked out of his house and we walked down the road and walked to the bus stop, and I'm just like, this is, you know, surreal, you know, to be honest. It's like, whoa. And the bus comes, get on the bus and go upstairs and have a cigarette, and I get the money out, and the bus conductor's just walking this way, and he looks at me. And then he looks at Paul, and he just like smiles, and I'm just like grinning like an idiot, you know, just like, you know, just like, how much? There you go. And he's smiling, and it was like, oh, yeah, thank you. yeah, that'll do. That was fun. That was, you know, that was my daily buzz on that day. I think the people that I was around was around him, and you know, like at Apple, you know, everything else. No, he was just normal. It was just, you know, Paul. You know, because everybody, you know, felt comfortable. You know, when we started at Apple at Wigmore Street, the Beatles used to come in quite a lot. You know, certainly Paul and John, Yoko. So everybody was used to it. I mean, you know, there was, oh, it's just Paul, you know. Oh, John's in, okay, you know. Oh, George is coming, like, oh, all right then. You know, there was, you know, it was just the way it was. You know, they were normal people. You know, which is, you know, besides being musicians, they were just normal people, you see. You know, nice people. When Phil Spector, I mean, nothing really, but when Phil Spector came down to remaster or some of The Long and Winding Road, Paul came down and was not happy. And I think he had a sore throat and he wasn't feeling too good. So he asked me to get him some honey and lemon, which I did. Gave it to him. And about half an hour later, I thought, maybe I'll give him some more. So I made him another honey and lemon, and I sort of took it to him. And he's just walking out of Studio One. I said, I thought you might want more honey and lemon. He said, no, don't want it. I'll ask for it when I want it. And I was like, okay. And that was about it. That was the harshest words I think I ever got, But he was pissed off with what was going on. I was just trying to alleviate things and, it didn't work. But that's, hey.
Did you see a lot of friction with Phil Spector?
No, not really. He was weird. He was really weird. I remember them sessions. The wall of sound, be in the studio. It's like, 20 musicians, 15 musicians, almost all playing the same thing. And he'd go, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Who? What? How do you, what? And it's like you're sitting there thinking, this is mad. But what was really sad was his bodyguard. He had a bodyguard. And because Phil was an insomniac, right? His bodyguard had to stay awake with him. And this guy used to walk in red eyes like you wouldn't believe. And he was like, hey, how they're going? Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, he hasn't been to bed yet, It's just this poor guy who was just had to follow this man around that just wouldn't sleep. Yeah, that was amazing sessions, yeah. On the outtakes of Abbey Road, when they're all playing guitar, that rock and roll bit, there's like a sequence of various tunes. And they're all, I remember that night, and they're just all doing a little and then there's another one, and then Paul does it, and then George does it, and then John. And it was like, that kind of stuck out, because that was, to see the three of them kind of doing rock and roll riffs, one after the other. That was kind of fun, But there was lots of those little bits that, you think, that was all right, that was all right. But mainly it's kind of just, it's a meld of all of those nights, just those five months with Abbey Road, with the Double White album, or maybe 3 months with Abbey Road, not too sure at all. But they just all, it's like touring, they just all meld into one, That's why specific nights is, Jesus, Besides being over 50 years ago, even 25 years ago, it was still all, it's just one big 2 years of Beatles with little bits of memories here and there, but the overall effect is, I was there.
You would set up his drums. Was he very particular about that, or was he easygoing about that? Or?
Well, I like that. Well, he's a drummer, so every cymbal has got to be in the right place, And I was kind of proud that I could get it near enough, absolutely perfect after about a week. I was dead chuffed with that. He very rarely, like most of them, they'll pick up the, hi-hat stand just to put it down again, just because that's what they do, Being invited to a party at his house was kind of like nice. That was a Christmas party. That was really nice. That's where I met this stunning-looking woman called Olivia Newton-John, who had just come over from Australia with Brian Walsh, I think, from the Shadows. So that was cool. Oh yeah, okay. Don't know who you are. She just came over and went, hello, I'm Olivia. I'm from Australia. I went, "Oh, hello, I'm Kevin. I work for the band." And yeah, it was just a good party. It was, it's just all those little day-to-day, there's no kind of outstanding, the drums got kicked over or, there's none of that. The only real thing was, I think it was on the Double White album when he left. Because he wasn't appreciated, so he thought, there was this, and he walked out for a couple of days. But apart from that, with that one, Mal, well, the band, there's three of them still sort of recording, while he's away. And one night, this guy managed to walk into the reception at the EMI, drunk, of course. But, I've heard Ringo's left the band. I've come to volunteer me drumming services. I'm a drummer, man. I thought the band might need a drummer because Ringo's left. So, and Mal was just like, no, arm round, not arm round, but it's like, no, and he just stood there and he just started chatting with them. No, we don't need it. No, Ringo's, we're all right. Do you want a cigarette? Oh, yeah, thanks, man. Like Mal was sort of up there and this guy's down here. And Mal just took a step and the guy just took a step with him. They carry on talking. And Mal just took another step and the guy just took another step. Whatever it was, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. The guy was at the front door. Okay, Mal, thanks. Yeah, man, great. Yeah, excellent. Wicked, didn't say wicked then, but thanks. And then he just left. I said to Mal, why didn't you just pick him up and throw him out? He could have done. He said, no, I can't do that. No, he says, whatever we do reflects on the band. Now that man's going to go back down to the club and he's going to say the Beatles, aren't they fantastic? And that was Mal, And it's kind of the same as up on the roof with the policeman. Just gently just try and keep them away as much as possible. We were in EMI, Abbey Road as it's called now. I'm the old school, so it's still EMI as far as I'm concerned. Just one night, George just walked into the control room, because they all came into the control room at sort of various times, it could be 6:30 to 7 o'clock, depending on when they were all scheduled to start, because George is coming from way off, John's coming from way off, Paul lives just over the road, and Ringo's just in London. So there's always like about a 20, 25-minute gap. And so that time it's always, okay, I make them tea, get them coffee and all of that, because I've already set the studio up. That's done. I'm just waiting now for them. And George walks in and just, hey, Kevin, I've just moved into this house, this big house, he said. And there's only me, Patty, and Terry Doran, or Terry. Terry Doran was his assistant. And it's really big. Do you want to come and move in for a bit just to make up the numbers? I said, yeah, because he never said no. I said, yeah, He said, okay, well, tomorrow just bring a bag and change your clothes and we'll go to my place tomorrow night. And so next day, got a bag. And at the end of the session, sort of did what I had to do. And then we drove out to George's place and so this has got to be about 2 o'clock in the morning, and out to Henley-on-Thames. We go through these big gates, it's just like, ooh, okay. And up this drive. And then in the headlights, there's just this Gothic mansion, it's just like, it was something out of the Hammer horror film, it was just like, wow, and then we go through the big doors and enter this massive room, and there's like gallery round, but it's all dark because there's no bulbs, there's no light bulbs, it was that primitive there that there was nothing really, a few light bulbs just so they could see into the kitchen. And my first night I was sleeping in, they put me up in the library, it's called, right? It was a small room basically on the ground floor off of the hall. And so Terry had got me a mattress and a sleeping bag and a pillow. And I just sort of, because I was like really stoned, in those days we did get really stoned. And I just went to bed, and after a couple of drinks and stuff, and it was Henley-on-Thames is down there, but there's all these big old trees, but they're lit by the light of street lights from the, so they're just like big shadows. And that night it was just windy, and so these things are doing like this. But on the walls, there's all of these shadows going backwards and forwards, and and it's like, here I am in a Hammer House of Horror, and I've got all of these, and I was just like, oh, and it was kind of weird. It really was just, and that was it. Woke up the next morning. An amazing house, and it was owned by some nuns before George bought it. And so they just stripped everything. As soon as they left, they took all the bulbs and everything else. And the grounds were just so overcrowded, and everything was a mess, basically. And so it was a question of just, okay, doing whatever Terry or Patty or George wanted to do, whether it's sweeping up, putting light bulbs in, washing windows, and when it got a bit warmer, I think we were out in the garden a lot, just chopping and hacking and cutting grass. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time. Richard DeLillo, the photographer, he came up to take some photos for a weekend. And at that point, George had some little Honda monkey bikes, which we used to bomb around. It was like 24-acre estate. So we used to bomb around, just having fun. One day, Richard couldn't stop it. He couldn't stop his bike. So he went up this little ramp, and there's a little stone wall, and he just hit it. And in my head now, I can still see Richard just going, because he was a tall lad. He was about 6'2", 6'3" or something. He was just a tall lad. And I just remember Richard going, and he broke his collarbone, which is not very good for a photographer. I think he stayed at George's for about another week while he recovered. But it was just a fun time. I mean, I remember Clapton turned up with Ginger Baker, right? Just one day. And Ginger Baker sort of must have been on acid. He's like, fucking hell, man. Wow. And it was just like, priceless, absolutely priceless. I took him down to the caves underneath and stuff. It was, the grotto. It was an incredible. I think I was there for about 4.5 months or so, 5 months, and then the Krishnas came, and so my presence wasn't needed because the house was now full. So I just moved back to London, and but an amazing few months, I must admit.
There's a quote in Liverpool airport from George, and I'm going to bastardize it, but it says something to the effect of, we're in the biggest band in the world. We had more money than God, but it means absolutely nothing if you don't have your health and happiness and family. Something to that effect. And I love that as a window into George. Was that what he was?
Yeah, oh yeah, George was a humanitarian. He was lovely. He really was lovely. I felt an affection for George, mainly because when I first started with him on the Double White album, I sort of walked in, and my second night, the first night I was invited in just by Mal, because I'd done this shopping thing. And so the night I actually did start with them, I'm like hiding, sort of standing behind this box on a stand, which I now know is called a monitor. I didn't know that then. And George was sitting on the floor, just playing the guitar away on it, and everybody's sort of getting their stuff together. And he just said, "Kevin, come over, sit down. Tell me all about yourself." And so that kind of that chilled me out a lot. I was still, a bit daunted about what I was let myself in for, But it was that was the start of just easing into the job with George. So I also found out that during that chat, he used to ride around delivering meat for a butcher's on a bike with a basket on the front. Well, I used to do the same in London, but for a grocer's, doing loaves of bread to little hotels around the West End in the mornings, so before I went to school. So we had kind of that in common. So I always felt more affinity with George, and so, because he was such a nice man, I did love him to bits. It was sad actually leaving, but because by then the Beatles had broken up anyway, but it was right. It was in the middle of his album, All Things Must Pass, and so that was kind of a gut wrench to not finish that album. Yeah.
Did you get to hear him playing any of those songs around the house, or were you?
No, not really. No, no. The house really wasn't like that at that point. I'm sure he must have been playing somewhere, but it was such a big house. And I was kind of working anyway, wasn't just loafing. It was, I'd be out for 6 hours or so, weeding or, whatever, sweeping up, doing whatever, So there was really none of that. It wasn't until he got his studio together.
Did you feel like he was creatively driven right then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You never know where somebody's headspace is.
No, that's right. That's the thing. It's it's in there. How it's going to come out. You've got no idea until it comes out. So you just let the musician get on with what he's got to do. And you just do what you've got to do, and eventually it'll come right. Mal rang me up and said George is doing a charity gig in New York, and not quite sort of finalised yet, but this is what it's going to happen. Do you want to do it? So of course I said, yes, of course. I wasn't working. That was it. And then all of that got arranged, and Mel said, okay, you're going to have to take the drum kit over. You can do that excess baggage, which is what we could do in those days. And so I just basically flew to New York with Ringo's drum kit, got into the hotel. Now, unfortunately, one of the girls that used to hang around Derek and the Dominoes, an American, decided to put a patch on my crotch of my jeans because they were worn out. I still don't know how they got ripped or worn out. So she put a American flag right on my crotch. And we're staying at this really nice hotel on Central Park. And about the second day I was there, and I had Ringo's drum kit in the closet, in the cupboard, Second day, the manager says, I'm sorry, sir, I've got to ask you to leave the hotel. And I had a picture of me sitting on the sidewalk, as you'd call it over there, pavement over here, right, with Ringo's drum kit, just, and me standing there like that. Oh God, But I just did a Mal. Just if I apologised like mad and just went, listen, I thought it was all right because a couple of American girls, showed it on for me. So why should I think anything wrong? But I'll sort it out. So I got some gaffer, good old gaffer, and I just covered it up and just carried on, and which was absolutely fine. But now you see, whenever I watch a concert for Bangladesh, I can see that lump of gaffer on my crutch. I mean, it's like, it's the first thing you almost look at. Oh, okay, I've seen that. Okay. Let's see. There was Billy Preston, naturally George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Jim Keltner, Leon Russell. There was another guitarist, Joe. Oh, can't remember his name. Cannot remember his name, sadly. Well, there was Badfinger, which I'd known before, and Nicky, their roadie, actually helped the back line as well. I should mention there was Nicky there, and Eric. Now Eric was in a bad way, as is well documented. But the word went out that nobody was to go into the dressing room to see him. Nobody. And I mean, I'd spent, I'd lived with him for a bit and been on tour with him for a bit, and even I was like, not allowed to go in. So that was a bit hard. But yeah, of course, Bob Dylan.
That was rough.
Yeah. It was all right, but everybody was all right. But yet again, you see, it was all of those musicians, once they came off stage, they were in the dressing room and they were having a great time. And the road crew are out on stage, packing down, We went to the after party, which was pretty wild. But yeah, so, all those musicians got on well with each other, and so they did what they did. Me and Nicky Bell did what we did. We met later and got drunk.
Moved on to the next gig.
Moved on to the next gig. Yeah, which for me was Wishbone Ash. And funnily enough, there was a couple of Wishbone Ash at the concert for Bangladesh. I was walking during rehearsal somewhere in New York, which is bizarre. And I just saw a couple of Wishbone Ash walking down the street, across the road. I was like, hey, well, I've got a couple of tickets but there's 4 of you, so, Ted's going to go. And I think Steve, the drummer, went in the end. So it was good. We did, I think, about a week or so rehearsals downstairs in the basement. And just yet again, just a normal rehearsal as far as I was concerned. Musicians do what they do. I do what I have to do. Yeah, and then concert time, that was pretty good. The first one. Yeah, I mean, everything went sort of well. There was nothing that, besides it being a massive concert, and me this is the first time I'd sort of done Madison Square Garden, and I think such a big show. Derek and the Dominoes was sort of halls and gyms and, sort of theatres. So this is my first mega thing. And met Chipmunk, really nice man. And during the shows, we had a line, so to speak. And he went one way and I went the other. And in Madison Square, you got the bleachers, I think they're called, aren't they? And underneath is just this big, long tunnel, just full of offices and rooms and dressing rooms or whatever. And it was just like, okay, see you later, man. And just took a gentle stroll along this long corridor, don't know why, nothing else to do, to be honest, And so it's just like, yeah. I got right to the other end, and there's Chip just walking the other way, big smile on his face. I got a big smile on my face, and we just literally crossed. We must have been doing exactly the same walk in space at the same time, because we crossed right at the other end from where we started, and just like smiled at each other and just carried on walking. It was fantastic. And then we did the second show, and
I have a selfish question. One of my all-time favorite amplifiers is a Silverface Fender Champ, and George is playing 4 of them in the concert for Bangladesh.
No, we hired those from Manny's, I think it was, when we got them from Manny's.
New York?
Yeah.
Okay. It's strange to have such low wattage amplifiers at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I think that was one of the technical problems, but I think that's why he had 4, but also somebody pointed out, we'll just mic it up. It's going to be mic'd. So that's what they did.
They sound great. I think it's a great studio amplifier that people use, but it's beautiful to see him with 4 of them on stage.
Yeah, no, I went and hired them for him.
Would you have been the one that carried them up onto the stage?
Oh, yeah. Right? Oh, yes, I would have done all of that. Yes, I would have done the roadieing. Although I'm actually thinking about, I'm not too sure if we were allowed to carry them because of unions in those days. They had to carry the gear onto the stage, and then you could do what you wanted with it. That's right, I think, yeah.
I think you're right. That makes
Yeah,
sense. At Madison Square Garden.
yeah. So I would have just, yeah, thank you, and just put it in position.
Even better.
Yeah, yeah, set Ringo's drum kit up, see if I could remember how to do that. But I'm sure he came in and did that with a hi-hat anyway, you know. Yeah, and so, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it was good because there was no problems. You know, if there's no problems, you don't really remember the show. You know, you remember the audience and you actually remember the event. But to kind of go, oh, that happened then and that happened then. You know, it's only looking at the film that they've made that then I can see what I actually did. You know, it's like with this Beatles film. It's interesting to see what I was doing in that because I don't remember what I was doing. Except for that, I got no idea what I was actually doing. So to watch myself doing something is, oh, okay, that's what I did, nothing. You know, that's, oh yeah, I was going from there to there. Well, to do nothing. Okay, that's all right. You know, change your venue. And so so that's the problem with that is just the event is in the mind, but not the actual gig because it ran smoothly. We had literally just finished a tour with a group called the Tourists, which was Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox band before the Eurythmics, and we were in Australia, and it was a bit of a manic tour, and got to the airport, and it's the bass player just was late, and his passport was in his suitcase, and we assured the lady at reception, you know, the airport thing that, you know, he's got his passport. We're going to Thailand. You can't get in unless you've got your passport, but, you know, you can't get through to your bags unless you've got a passport. So it's like, you know, all this. And then, so after this tour, I was just exhausted anyway. And then I heard John had died, had been shot, just as I was entering the airport. And I got on the plane and I cried. You know, and it was a lot to do with John, just senseless. But it was also the emotion of finishing this tour, you know. At that point, I've been with them for 9 months. So I toured with them a lot, and a lot of things had happened. And so at the end of it, it was just like, I just sat in the plane and just cried.